What's up, everybody? It is Locked On Sooners with a Sooners Wire twist. I got my guys in here from the Sooners Wire. We're going to talk Oklahoma's bowl game with the Oregon Ducks in the Alamo Bowl and more on today's episode of Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Locked On Sooners. My name is John Williams. You can follow me on Twitter at John9Williams. Below me, we got Bryant Cruz next to me, or the other way. We got Josh Helmer, my guys that write over at the Sooners Wire with me. Make sure you go and check them out. Bryant, where can they find you on Twitter?
At that man Bryant. That is at ThatManBryant.
And Josh, that
pretty
way.
Simple. At Josh on Ref. That's where you can find me.
All right, and we are getting you ready for the Alamo Bowl. The Oklahoma Sooners are in San Antonio getting ready to play the Oregon Ducks, and this is a team that Oklahoma's got a little bit of history with going back to 2006. Now, obviously, that game has zero impact on what happens in tomorrow's or tonight's matchup. This is going to get published on Wednesday. But, Brian, just overall, kind of give me your general impressions going into this game. How do you feel like the team is mentally, physically prepared heading into the Alamo Bowl?
Yeah, I would probably say that the team as a whole is in a better spot than I think that they were this time last month. Obviously, there's a new coach who's not really new. He's quite familiar to the Oklahoma program. And then you also have Bob Stoops coming out of retirement for a one-game exhibition. And I think that's really galvanized the entire program. The combination of both of them coming back, but as well, just the immediate, for the immediate future with this game coming up. And I think it's just an overall positive boost that they needed, considering how everything kind of shook out at the end of their actual regular season. So look, going forward, we've got Caleb Williams. He's going to lead the team tomorrow, or tonight, I should say. And obviously there's the smoke and mirrors about what's going on there. But for one night, I think they come out and they just play hard. They play fast, enjoy themselves without, I guess, the pressures of, all right, we can't lose this game because it'll ruin our chances at going to the national championship or competing for a national championship. They just get to, cut it loose. And crazy enough, and I know this may not necessarily go over well with some people, but it's different. And I think that for once that these guys will probably enjoy just, hey, this is it's an odd occurrence that they play for a game that maybe doesn't mean something in the grand scheme of things, but considering everything that's kind of happened to them over the last month or so, it's refreshing. And they probably would relish this and say, let's just have fun one last time, and then we'll reassess things and pick back up in spring ball. So
yeah, football's supposed to be fun. And so
Yeah.
it's a good opportunity for a lot of these guys, their last game as Oklahoma Sooners,
Yep.
to just go out there, have a good time, play their best and play their hardest for a coach that many of them, especially if they were Oklahoma kids, grew up just idolizing Bob Stoops as the head coach of the Oklahoma Sooners. Now, Josh, as we watch the press conferences, just there's a lot of energy, I feel like, for this game on the Oklahoma side of things. Is that your impression as well?
I'll tell you what jumped out from the press conferences just here right on the eve of this thing getting booted off is Bob Stoops. Are you kidding me? How much fun is this guy having? This is not the Bob Stoops I remember from 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, where everything's locked up and everything's not super stressful, but just not this much at ease. Are you kidding me? He's answering questions saying, sure, why not have a rock and roll tequila bath if we win this Valero Alamo Bowl? What are they going to do? They can't fire me. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, it's fun leading up to this. Obviously, Bob Stoops is one of the big storylines in this game. Can OU go win one final game for Bob Stoops? That's, from the players' perspective, it's been clear, it's been obvious that in the midst of everything that happened with Lincoln Riley leaving, that week and a half where you're waiting, okay, who's going to be the next head football coach? Bob Stoops stepping in, was a big positive for this program. And now I think these players, they're excited about the opportunity to play for him one final time and hopefully get him a win.
Oklahoma football's Twitter account, they posted a picture of Bob standing on the field just kind of by himself in the stadium. And I've never been more excited or more amped up for my team to go into a seemingly exhibition game, a second-rate bowl game than I am for this one, and how much I really want them to win this one now, because I don't know. I feel like that's just the general feeling for Oklahoma fans, for the team in general, is it's not, and not just win it for Bob, but like there's just a greater sense of urgency to go win this game than there might have been for any other interim head coach at the time. And I think what gets exciting about it is you've got a lot of young guys. I mean, there's been a lot of opt-outs, but what I'm excited to see is the young guys getting an opportunity to play in this game that we might not have otherwise seen. I mean, you look at guys like, Danny Stutzman and Ethan Downs, they played fewer than 200 snaps this year. And while we got a chance to see them and they splashed when they were on the field, that's not a lot compared to some of the other guys. So Brian, I want to turn to you real quick on the defensive side of the football. It's a little bit different because you had 4 guys opt out and you got some guys that might still transfer or go to the NFL draft. Who's a guy that you're looking at watching, or you're looking at and you're excited to watch play in the Alamo Bowl?
I'm going to honestly probably deviate from what a lot of the public will probably lean towards. I'm going to go and say Reggie Grimes, largely because I think he's going to play a huge part next year in that team. You've got guys that are going to be returning, presumably like Jalen Redmond and Woody Washington, Key Lawrence, and names like that made plays this year and, shine bright. But Reggie's kind of just been biding this time. And that defensive line is going to get absolutely decimated between graduations and the guys that have already decided that they're going to head to the NFL. So Reggie's definitely the guy that I would look at, simply because physically he's ready, but he just hasn't had the snaps. So how they balance that is going to be the biggest thing. So seeing him in a more exposed role and under someone that he's already played for with Brian Odom and stuff like that, just see how it goes. So.
Yeah, and he's a guy that seems to have taken on quite a leadership role with Isaiah Thomas and Nick Bonito opting out of the bowl and heading to the draft. Josh, the same question for you. On the defensive side of the ball, who's the guy that you're really looking forward to watching in the Alamo Bowl?
All of them. I'm looking forward to watching all of them. No, Reggie Grimes, I think, is a great pick. It's a huge moment for him. But if you're not seeing Reggie Grimes, then I'll share a couple of youngsters with you that I think this could be a moment as you see the Alamo Bowl and you start thinking about, you always get into these debates, how important is this game, right? How much carryover is there in this game? Well, I think with younger players, there can be quite a bit of carryover. Again, Grimes would be one of those guys, but what about Ethan Downs? I think we're going to see a good bit of Ethan Downs in this game. And then another younger player to keep an eye on. Yes, fan favorite, Mr. Danny Stutzman. This is a big opportunity with Asamoah out of the equation in this game. You see that David Agwebu's got the start here and probably will figure to get a healthy majority of the snaps. But I think we're going to see a good bit of Danny Stutzman too, and that's exciting. I want to see how a couple of those young guys like Downs, like Stutzman, what do they look like in this game? Because that's important when we start thinking about 2022.
Yeah, you don't want to completely treat it like an NFL preseason game where you're getting everybody in, because you want to go out and win the game. At the same time, it is a great opportunity to get a guy like Danny Stutzman a healthy dose of snaps. I mean, the third linebacker for the Oklahoma Sooners played a lot. Like David Agwebu played a lot for the Oklahoma Sooners. So there's a good chance that we do see him play a lot. And I think that's going to bode well for them, because the dude just, like, he exudes energy and excitement. And he's kind of that guy, maybe not as intense as the Danny from the Replacements, but he's just kind of has that same energy level, which is like nonstop, and you just can't contain him. So that's a guy that is going to be a lot of fun to watch. And I think for me, I want to see if they give Billy Bowman an extra set of snaps. This was a guy that started the season as their nickel corner, had a bit of an up and down early go in 2021. and somebody that I think they're going to be relying upon next year. Are they going to get him a healthy dose of snaps, give him something to go to the tape with in the offseason and be like, okay, here are the things that we need to improve on from our last game? I really would like to see them give him a good share of the slot cornerback snaps just to give him some confidence heading into the offseason. But coming up next, we're going to get into a few keys of the game, talk about the offensive that is pretty much intact. And then in the third segment, we will give our game predictions and then kind of what we're looking forward to in the offseason. But first, let me talk to you about Built Bar. Built Bar is the best tasting protein bar. It's easy to eat, 100% covered in chocolate, and it tastes great. Bars have anywhere from 130 to 180 calories, 4 or 5 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 or 18 grams of protein. You can't believe how good these things taste. I eat one just about every single day. The peanut butter brownie is my all-time favorite, but you can't go wrong. They all taste fantastic. And you can get 15% off your order if you go to built.com. They've also got great vitamin drinks as well. We drink those on a regular basis. My wife and I do to help build our immune system during the cold and flu season. So go to built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your next order over at built.com. Now, guys, let's talk keys to the game. Well, first of all, let's talk about the offense, actually, because we didn't really spend much time on them. This is a unit that's pretty much intact. They lost Jaden Hazelwood to the transfer portal, lost Austin Stogner to the transfer portal. Certainly big losses because, Hazelwood was a starter, finished second on the team in receptions, first on the team in receptions, second in yards, first in touchdowns. But you got a really good wide receiver core. So I feel like they can mitigate that loss a little bit at the H-back tight end position. Stogner was part of a pretty much of a timeshare with Jeremiah Hall and Braden Willis. So what are you looking forward to seeing on the offensive side of the football? Josh, let's start with you. What's your expectations for the offense against the Oregon Ducks?
My expectation is that the offense against the Oregon Ducks is going to be very, very explosive. It's an Oregon defense that's without Kayvon Thibodeau, the All-American edge rusher in this game. So that alone, you feel like, okay, well, that opens up the door for some possibilities for Oklahoma to put together one of its better offensive showings than maybe we've seen over the last month of the season when those defenses ramped up for Oklahoma. Other things that I'm watching for, what about Caleb Williams? I know that everybody's sort of waiting for an official announcement from Caleb Williams. Is this guy staying? Is this guy going? Does he have to make an official announcement? I mean, he never said, hey, publicly, I've got a big announcement coming up. It's just sort of, I guess, expected from everybody out there. But when you think about Caleb Williams, 73% completion percentage in his first 4 games of serious action this season, that number was just 49% in the final 3 games versus Baylor, versus Iowa State, versus Oklahoma State. He had a great first half versus OSU, but he and Oklahoma were held scoreless in the second half versus the Cowboys. So I'm just sort of in general, I know it's a bowl game. Again, I've had folks fighting with me on Twitter. Really? Is this thing going to carry over again? How important is this bowl game? I get it. To me, it is important. I want to see Caleb Williams look great again one final time in 2021. I think that this game with Cale Gundy calling the shots, I think that's another exciting angle, another exciting tentacle to this football game. Here you've got a guy, 23 years, he's been an assistant coach now at Oklahoma. He's never had the opportunity to be the offensive play caller. He gets that shot in this game. So in closing, what I'm looking forward to offensively, one final thought on it. I think it also sets up to be a big day for Kennedy Brooks. I think Oklahoma will come out with the mindset that they want to establish and show as this thing transitions into the Brent Venables era. Okay, hey, maybe at times we weren't physical enough. Kennedy Brooks and what I think is his final game with Oklahoma, I think he could be set up potentially for a big, big day.
And you'd love to see it. I think everybody loves to watch Kennedy Brooks run and have big days. But one thing I think is really important that you touched on is Cale Gundy. Is it possible that if Jeff Lebby goes the way that we think he goes and has a few successful years as the Oklahoma Sooners offensive coordinator and then eventually becomes a head coach somewhere, is it possible that Cale Gundy then is able to step in as the offensive coordinator at some point? I mean, that's a lot of speculation and looking really far into the future, but that could be something to keep an eye on because, like you said, he's been with Oklahoma forever. Doesn't really seem all that intent on leaving to go somewhere else. Bryant, let's turn to you real quick. What are you looking forward to seeing on the offensive side of the football?
I know. I'm going to piggyback off of what we've already said about a lot of different things. I think it's important that people understand that while this is, yes, an exhibition game, you can bet everything that Brent Venables, Jeff Lebby, Ted Roof, that whole staff of guys, they're going to be paying attention to this and using it as an evaluation tool for next year. So it matters for the guys that plan to come back or potentially might come back. But to that point, I think for me the biggest one that I'll be looking at is the offensive line play. I was quite pretty up and down about it all year long. I saw a lot of good moments, some really bad moments, some in betweens, and it just depended on who they played against. I would like to see, Bill Beatenbow. He's got his guys back, and he's going to be back. There's no kind of up in the air decision on what he'll be doing after this game. He's not an interim. He's the guy now, still, I should say. And so I would like to see the offensive line come out and just dominate. And if that leads to, Kennedy Brooks running free for 200 yards, and okay, that's cool too. But just in general, establishing a level of physicality that Oklahoma needs going forward. And I think that was ultimately part of why the offense just sputtered a lot of this year. They just never got consistent offensive line play. I think a lot of people heaped a lot of blame on the quarterbacks for a lot of things, and I don't think that they were all perfect, but just seeing how guys look. You're going to get some, probably some fresh faces in there as well at some point. Guys like maybe Bray Walker, Wanya Morris as well. Just, names that could potentially be starters next year. We got a transfer in this past week as well. So who knows? You're going to be playing a lot of musical chairs this offseason, but the guys that will be coming back and, might even have a chance to put one last game of tape on, out there for themselves as they, potentially pursue professional opportunities. I think that's just going to be the biggest one is seeing how the offensive line plays and how they basically kind of set the tone for how this game is going to go. So.
Yeah, and for me, it's going to be Mario Williams. That's one guy I feel like could have gotten a few more snaps in games in the second half of the season. We saw what he was capable of in the Texas Tech game, but I think even early in the season, he was a guy that they could use at every level of the offensive play structure in the short area, catching bubble screens. He's really good making people miss. But I felt like they underutilized him in the second half of the season, especially after the Texas Tech game, where he had a big breakout moment, and it just seemed like it kind of all went quiet after that. So that's one guy I'm really looking to see how they utilize him in this game with Jaden Hazelwood off to Arkansas. The other thing I really want to see heading into the offseason with this offense in the Alamo Bowl is what do they do with Eric Gray? This was a guy that was expected to come in and potentially even start for this team as early as the summer ball, but never really got a full opportunity, it felt like, and it was very, very underutilized. We saw him in spurts. They love to throw that little swing pass to him when they were down, on the positive side of the 50, but never really kind of gave it to him after like the first few games of the season. So I'd really like to see them get him involved in this game and allow that to be the springboard to 2022. And we're like, okay, it's the Eric Gray show now. Depending on what happens with Kennedy Brooks, because that's a guy that could go to the NFL. Kennedy Brooks is. And so we got to know, what are we going to see from Eric Gray if he is the starting running back in 2022? But coming up next, we're going to give you keys to the game and our predictions for the Alamo Bowl. But first, I got to talk to you about BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this holiday season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. As football continues its march to the college bowl season and the pro football playoffs, BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the sports action this season. So head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus from basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and UFC right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and the easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. So don't wait to take advantage of all the new amazing offers available to you right now at BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, so Bryant, we'll start with you on this one. Give me a key to the game, and then we'll come back after the fact, and I'll get your predictions for it.
Absolutely. My key for the game is probably simply they just need to come out and attack Oregon. Oregon is down a lot of players, and shout out to their defensive coordinator for saying that we're still gonna, we're gonna show up and we're gonna play regardless. But the fact of the matter is, they are down a lot of guys, and I think Oklahoma should just come out ready to go and let it fly. Defensively, I think the biggest thing they have to worry about. Excuse me.
He's fired up for the game as well, man. He's pumped. It's all good.
Defensively, Anthony Brown is not. How would I put this? He's not the most prolific of passers, and he struggled a lot of times in zone coverage. Watch a couple of games, notably the Cal game. They struggled a lot, and I think that given the fact that Oklahoma is still running a defense that they are confident in and they've played in pretty much the majority of the season, despite Alex Grinch not being there for this game, it gives them an advantage. There's some continuity there. And I think that the defense, really picked it up towards the end of the year. So despite losing some of those bodies along the defensive line where they generated the pressure, I still think that they have the bulk of their secondary back for this game. And that's where I think that they'll win it at. Just making Anthony Brown beat them. And I don't think he can. And there we go.
All right, Josh, what about you? What's a couple keys to the game for you heading into this one?
This probably is a lot of what Bryant sort of started by saying there, but honestly, I think one of the biggest keys for Oklahoma in this game, and it's not, I mean, how do you judge us outside of just what we see in the in the bowl game itself tonight and the final score and all of that, but show me you care, man. Show me you want to be in this game. Show me that this Valero Alamo Bowl matters to Oklahoma, and it matters to Oklahoma because you're trying to make a statement that, listen, adios, Lincoln Riley. We don't need you, buddy. We got Brent Venables coming in. We got Bob Stoops leading us for this game right now. I mean, I think that's a big key to me in this football game, and I think that's going to be apparent very, very early whether or not Oklahoma has approached this football game with that type of mentality. In terms of the technical side of it, I think Oklahoma needs to tackle well with some new folks that really haven't had necessarily a ton of opportunities to do that, or in certain cases maybe limited opportunities and haven't seen those opportunities in some time. I think about Isaiah Coe up front. One final key, talking about just a specific player. I think this is a big game for Jalen Redmond. I really do, guys. 2019, he led Oklahoma with 6.5 sacks. I think he finished, I forget how many tackles for loss he finished, but it was third highest on the team. And anyways, every season that he's been a part of with Oklahoma, of course, he opted out 2020. This season here, he hasn't been the focal pass rusher for Oklahoma, right? There's been previously Ronnie Perkins in 19. 2020, he opted out. 2021, it's Nick Benito. It's Isaiah Thomas. So what does he look like in a game where, listen, he's going to be the primary focus for Oregon in terms of pass protection. So can he still be disruptive in this game? I mean, that's something I think is a massive key for OU, not just in this game, but moving forward.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. And I think what it's going to require is those guys that are on the edge, winning their one-on-one battles. The Reggie Grimes, the Clayton Smith, the Ethan Downs, they're going to have to beat their guys because Jalen Redmond's going to get a lot of attention in this one. And it's just a matter of can they win those one-on-one battles and generate a pass rush? Because while Anthony Brown may not be the best, passer in the world, you give anybody time and they'll be able to pick you apart. And I think that's where it's going to come down to. Can you generate pressure with your front four without having to send extra rushers? We know that they do like to send extra rushers. You'll see Key Lawrence, you'll see some corner blitzes, some slot blitzes, but are they going to be able to get the pressure there without having to do it on a regular basis? Because it's when you surprise them, that's when it's the most effective. All right, let's get to prediction time. First of all, let's get your prediction against the spread. Let's get your prediction straight up as well. So betonline.ag has the Oklahoma Sooners as a -6.5 favorite. So they're laying 6 points. to Oregon. So Bryant, go ahead, give me your prediction for this game and against the spread.
So I do believe Oklahoma is going to win. They have been shaky at best this year against the spread. So I'm gonna pick them to buck the trend to end the season on a good note. I think that they will cover the spread. I'll even go out on a limb and say that they're going to cover it probably by about 14 points. That's right in line with what I predicted the score to be on Sooners Wire. You guys can go check that out when that's posted as well. So I'm gonna double down and say that they're gonna cover. Definitely they'll win, and I'm looking at a score of around about 10 to 14 points.
All right, Josh, how about you?
I think Oklahoma is going to show, okay, yes, we have taken this game seriously. Yes, collectively, we have endorsed a rock and roll tequila bath post-game for one Bob Stoops. And I like Oklahoma to win this thing, man. I'm taking the Sooners 37-27 over Oregon. I do think that Anthony Brown at times will make some plays, but maybe that final score is not even necessarily indicative of the game having been perhaps that close. I think Oklahoma comes out. I think they're very focused. I think they're the more motivated team in this game. And I think Caleb Williams, Kennedy Brooks, both big days offensively for Oklahoma.
Yeah, it's Oklahoma. Oklahoma's going to cover this one. I just think that because the offense is still so intact and Oregon has lost so many guys, I mean, Oregon's going to put up a good fight. They're a good, solid football team with a lot to prove. I just think Oklahoma is just going to be too talented offensively to make it a close game on the Oregon side of things. I just don't think Oregon's offense is good enough to keep up with Oklahoma in this one. I think they'll score some points, kind of like you guys both alluded to, but I just don't think that they're going to be able to keep pace. Let's check the over-under real quick. Now, this is going to be an interesting one. The over-under is 60.5. Bryant, over or under on that one?
Yeah, I'm going to smash the the under there. Simply out of the fact that I do believe Oklahoma is going to get their points, but there's always a possibility of teams just easing up off the gas in the fourth quarter, because I don't think that's going to be a game that's really going to be decided in the fourth quarter. You can see a lot of rushing, I should say, attempts in the fourth quarter. Oklahoma comes in with like a 10, 14-point lead, and they just sit on the ball. And that'll eat some clock and keep the score under. So yeah, at an over/under of 60, I will say it's going to go under. It's going to get close though. I think it definitely will be close, but ultimately I'm going to say under.
And Josh, what about you?
Well, if my math skills are intact here, I told you 37-27 Oklahoma. What did you say the over/under was? Right at about 60?
60.5,
yeah. So just sneaking over at 64 points, that combined total.
Yeah, I'm also going to take the over in this one just based on what Oklahoma is going to do offensively, I think. Sorry, Bryant. But I think you also said 38-24, right?
Yeah, I know. I'm conflicted because I want to believe that Oklahoma is going to come out here and put up points, but I also part of me believes that it's going to become a game where Caleb Williams is going to come out on fire, I believe, in the first half. But there's going to hit that I'm scared of that third quarter lull for Oklahoma still. I know he's not here anymore. He's in California. But it's just one of those things that I think they need to address actually as they go into this next era with Brent Venables. That third quarter, though, it's a slippery slope for any sort of Oklahoma betting, procedures. Is what happens in that third quarter for them. Because they'll do exactly what they need to do for that first and second quarter, and then the third, and then the fourth quarter is kind of up in the air. So that third quarter is giving me pause, and so that's why I'm like iffy about. Now that you put me on the spot about the over or under as opposed to what I wrote down. So Either way, I think Oklahoma wins, and so I think ultimately they'll cover. So I'm more confident in that than I am in this over or under hitting.
Yeah, for
He
sure.
says,
I
"Slam the money line, ladies and gents."
That's right.
Yes,
That's right.
yes.
That's right.
Bet the
No,
house on money
I'm
line.
kind of with you on that. I don't feel as confident taking the over because I mean, it's like you alluded to when you're talking about your prediction. This is a team that's struggled to cover at times in 2021, and I mean, we all think that they're going to cover 6.5. Like if this point spread were double digits, I'd have a really hard time taking Oklahoma in double digit points, even though I think they might win by double digits. It's still hard to bet that. But then the over under, you're right. Like, does Oregon have any consistency offensively that allows them to hold up their end of the bargain on the over under part of that? Does Oklahoma, like you mentioned, let off the gas late in the fourth or in the fourth quarter when they've got a comfortable lead? It'll be interesting to find out.
Yeah. I think the one key factor that may play a role here, Travis Dye, I believe, is still playing. He's a really good running back. I've enjoyed watching him run the ball over the last few years. He's one of those guys that kind of similar in the vein of like Deuce Vaughn that Kansas State has. He's not maybe necessarily the biggest back, but he's one of those guys. He just gets going and it kind of snowballs. So then that, who knows? There's a lot of different factors here. I think ultimately Oklahoma does what they need to, and I mean because they don't really have the receivers out wide that really kind of strike fear in your heart. So if Oklahoma can bottle up Dye, it probably helps out my case. Maybe not you guys, but we'll see. We'll see.
That's right. All right, Josh, any final thoughts?
I'm looking forward to this, man. I can't wait. I don't know. It's been a weird month in the sense that the season has had a sense of finality to it, even though there was a bowl game coming up all month. And then, obviously because of the immediate departure of Lincoln Riley and then everything that went into that week and a half speculating, okay, is it going to be Brent Venables? What is this 2022 signing class going to look like for Oklahoma? It wound up coming up aces on both accounts for Oklahoma. And then, boom, oh, by the way, yes, there is, in fact, still a Valero Alamo Bowl to play. So I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait to see what OU looks like. I expect OU to play well. And I think this is a little bit of a springboard for Oklahoma to keep some of that momentum that they've had. Again, you think about the 2022 signing class, I think Bryant can probably speak to this as well as anybody, but for those that really, really follow the recruiting closely, there was a panic when Lincoln left, and that really didn't wind up being the case. It wound up, at least early, there's still pieces to add here for Oklahoma in this signing class, but has wound up being a great class. And I think now with an Alamo Bowl win, you can just keep that positive momentum going and then start the Brent Venables era off the way that everybody wants to, which would be with a Bob Stoops win right before, right?
That's right. That's right. A lot of good energy, a lot of good vibes surrounding the Oklahoma Sooners program right now. And guys, thank you so much for jumping on Locked On Sooners. Make sure you go follow Bryant on Twitter at ThatManBryant. Follow Josh at JoshOnRef. Also listen to him on 94.7 in Oklahoma City, 1400 still in Norman on the Ref. You can hear him 9 to noon with Chris Plank weekdays over there. Make sure you go read their work on the Sooners Wire as well. Thank you so much to those of you who have been reading and are subscribed to the show here on Locked On Sooners. Until tomorrow, where we will recap the Oklahoma Sooners' probable win over the Oregon Ducks. I'm John Williams for Josh Helmer and Bryant Cruz. I will catch you next time.